Welcome once again to Charting the Life Course. This series is two parts. It's today and also tomorrow. We are talking about the IEP and also belonging.
Brandy, it's next Monday, not tomorrow. That's okay.
Oh, thanks. Next week.
Yep.
All right.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, which is December the 10th. Same time. All right. So Charting the Life Course is a framework which was developed by people for people with disabilities and families with the support of what we now call Charting the Life Course Nexus. Nexus is housed in the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And in the current community of practice, there are 20 plus states committed to supporting families using the principles and sharing what they're learning with others. Charting the Life Course trainings are provided by the Family Resource Network of Ohio, and it's Ohio's official hub for Charting the Life Course. And our funding is done by the state through the Department of Developmental Disabilities and also the Department of Education and Workforce. We thank those grantors because we are able to do these trainings and more for free of charge. We have a power team that work behind the scenes, sometimes in front of the scenes as well for us. We have Tracy Manns, and Tracy is our Resource Network of Ohio project manager. And we also have Erica Young. She's in the background today. Wave, Erica. Erica is our project coordinator. So the different presentations that you see, if you have any questions, any handouts that you may or may not have received, check in with Erica because she is the one that will take care of all those needs for you. Thanks, Erica. And my coworker and presenter today, co-presenter, is none other than Celia. Celia, please go ahead and share about yourself.
Yeah, so I welcome everybody. I'm super excited you're here. I'm looking at the poll and trying to get a sense of who all's in the room. And my name is Celia Schlomer, as Brandy said, and this is the first time that we've gotten to work together. And we've been chomping at the bit since Brandy joined the bench because we met several years back. And I've always encouraged her to tell her own Charting the Life Course story. So I'm tickled to be working with her. It is a privilege. I am a mom of 4 amazing children, several of who have had support in school, and one of whom had an IEP. And I began this journey of working in the disability field being her mom. And so it's been an interesting kind of course of events. I did not go into school in education, did not go into school planning to be a disability advocate, but my journey unfolded in front of me early on. So I am the Senior Family Engagement Specialist or Family Support Coordinator at the Division for Developmental and Behavior Pediatrics at Children's Hospital. And I also am part of the staff at the University of Cincinnati Center for Excellence, or UCED for short. And UCEDs, like Nysonger and the University of Cincinnati UCED, where I sit, are here to support families and interdisciplinary training around developmental disabilities. And that's how we started in this Charting the Life Course, on this Charting the Life Course journey with the University of Missouri, Kansas City, which is also a UCED. Our contact information is on both our slides if you want to reach out afterwards with any questions. I am a sibling, in addition to being a mom, of a daughter with disability, but I am also the sibling, and that's that other picture on there. I'm the youngest, and she is the oldest in our family. So, Brandy, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks. And once again, my name is Brandy Muhammad, and I work through the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. I'm also a mom. I'm a solo mom as well of 5 years, which means I'm a widow. My 2 younger children are my exceptional students. Our son, as you see on the far right, he is 23. He was diagnosed with dyslexia in 10th grade, actually. He had been in special education since 2nd, so he kind of led me on the journey. Our youngest daughter is beside me in the picture, and she's 19, and she has SLD, specific learning disability, and our oldest is 30 years old, and she's married. So the journey began with me and my husband at the time with our son because we didn't know what was happening and why it wasn't happening the way it was supposed to. And so I just kind of fell into working with the school board or school district in Columbus, and then have eventually moved on. And now I work with the Ohio Coalition. In addition to that, I'm also contracted with FNRO, that's the Family Resource Network of Ohio. And I get to do what I do and share with people my story and also more information about charting the life course. That's enough about me. Let's continue on. So, charting the life course is about helping people with disabilities to live their best lives. Whether you're a parent, you're a teacher, you work for others or in different ways in support, we all have roles in supporting them to reach their goals. Maybe it's by helping them learn a new skill, by building connections, or opening doors and new opportunities. Think about how you help people in your life to feel confident, capable as they are working towards their dreams. So, why IEPs and belonging? Why not? Why will we be having this conversation? Because belonging is imperative for our survival and thriving. We feel a sense of belonging when we feel connected to others. We also feel our presence when we, let me say that again. When we feel that our presence and our contributions are valued, it makes such a bigger difference. So much so that right here in this chart, the hierarchy of needs, belonging is in there as well, in addition to psychological needs, safety, love, and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. If you don't have one, it's hard to have the others, but they all work in harmony together. Let's talk a little bit more about belonging. Belonging is fundamental human need that dates all the way back to our earliest ancestors. It's also a sense of belonging to access our skills and realizing full potential. If you've ever been in a situation where you lack belonging, you can definitely tell the difference. Also, when people that you work with or employees are affected, their happiness is affected as well. Their well being and also their productivity is affected. As individuals and systems, we can have a real impact when we value and prioritize belonging. So, yeah, over to you.
Thanks. So, what does it really mean to belong? So, I want you to stop and think about that. Take a look at the Webster's Dictionary definition about what belonging is, and think about a time when you really got a real sense that you didn't belong. What happened in that space? Or more importantly, what didn't happen? I know with me, often when I'm in a space I don't feel I belong, I get quiet. I don't speak as frequently. I don't throw in my ideas. I don't boldly take us on a different route like I often do when I'm in a room that I'm comfortable with. By show of hands, take a second. And again, this is going to be interactive, so hang out with me. This is at least it's entertaining at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But use your little hand raise and tell me if you've had similar feelings when you're in a space where you felt like you didn't belong. If you want to throw something in the chat about what it felt like, feel free to do that. And we'll keep an eye on those too. But yeah, it's a common feeling. And what I love the most when I started to do this research around this idea was the opposite of belonging is fitting in. Think about that. The opposite of belonging is simply fitting in. Because when we fit in, we change who we are. Often in this field, we use the word mask, but we change who we are to be like everyone else in the room. And if we have to change who we are to be in the room, we clearly don't feel like we belong. But often belonging is a feeling. And that's what we really want to talk about as we talk about it in the context of the IEP and this process that we walk through to develop the IEP. So I want you guys to take a minute and I want you to actually put in the chat for you, not for the folks that you support. We're going to be person-centered for a hot minute here. For you, What does belonging mean to you? How do you know when and if you belong? And what does it mean to belong? And if you'll throw that into the chat, Brandy and I are going to take a look at those for a little bit. So yeah, Lainey had spoken earlier. She said she doesn't talk and she sits back and she observes. Oh, now I love that, Jennifer. You talk because you are anxious. Alma feels out of place. Elaine exits.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When I'm included in the conversation, my thoughts are heard. You share and laugh. You really know when you belong, when you're a part of something, when you're comfortable, when you feel like you can be your true self, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I can be my true self without fear or judgment and share my voice. I like to be at home, warm and fuzzy. I feel at home, warm and fuzzy, supported and encouraged. There's joking, quiet and not talk when you're not comfortable, feeling comfortable in your own surroundings. So think about that. Think about the IEP process. Think about the families that we're supporting in that process and the students that we're supporting in that process. Just the word comfortable. And think what doesn't happen in rooms that we're comfortable or not comfortable. I'm sorry. This
Mm-hmm.
is a really important conversation and we need to support each other. I want to feel needed within the group, a part of the team. Thank you, Lisa. I observe before I talk and I get comfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
part of it is, I love that you brought that up, Kevin, because part of that is the work. We've got to find the place where we are comfortable. And a lot of that's going to be inner conversation as well as outer conversation. So I really appreciate those comments because it really does call us to, we're part of the process. Everything doesn't have to change on the outside to make us comfortable. I have an older sibling, I'm one of 7, and she
Mm-hmm.
used to look at me and say, you can't say you make me feel. You
Mm-hmm.
can't make me feel uncomfortable. I'm not doing the work to make myself comfortable given what's going on in the room, which may be things happening from you, but it's part of the work is on us. And so we're going to talk about that too as we move forward. So thank you for participating. Y'all are my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brandy again.
All right, awesome. We had a couple hands up. You want to
Were those
have those?
questions or were those to before? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Chelsea and Lisa, do you have questions? No? Okay. We'll go ahead then.
Okay. All right, awesome. So now we're going to talk about the impact of belonging in school. So we know social value impacts what people can access, right? So whether it's opportunities or relationships and even recognition. Now here's the tough part. When someone's seen as being on the margins of a community, on the outskirts, or like feeling left out, like we talked about just a few minutes ago, or different, becomes a lot harder for them to get those good things, right? To live that good life. Same thing for kids when they play out big time in school. An example could be their place in the school community, such as friendships or how they work or interact with others and how others see them, even how teachers treat them. When a child feels included, their value grows. But if they're left out, it's much higher and a steeper climb. So, how do we make sure that every child feels like they belong? That's why we're here today, right? That's the challenge. It's an opportunity for us all. We're talking about inclusion. So, let's take a second look at the impact of inclusion in education, not just on the students with disabilities, but students in the classroom. Did you know that research has shown that including students with disabilities in regular education classroom settings does not harm the non disabled peers? In fact, oftentimes the benefits are both academically and socially higher. So one study, as you can see on the screen, has found that 81% research indicated that no negative effects happen on non-disabled students' academic development. In reality, what has happened is instead, 23% of the study revealed positive effects, such as improved collaboration, empathy, and also understanding. Inclusive classrooms foster an environment where everyone can learn, grow, and contribute together. And it isn't just beneficial for one group, it strengthens the entire classroom community.
And you know, Brandy, this we'll make sure you guys have the link. I found this when we found this study. I found it very interesting, and if people are interested, we can make sure at the end of this they get the link to that. But on the slides is the name if you want to look into it.
Absolutely. Thanks. Now
Mhm.
we're going to look at the law. We're going to look at IDEA. And when we talk about full participation, independent living, self-sufficiency, they are all keys to belonging in society. It's simple. It's right there in the law. It's a vision of belonging. It is not something extra. As you can see, the underlined, improving educational results for children with disabilities is essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. It's right there, point blank and simple. Another law. So let's look at another part of the law. It's also access to general curriculum. Part of belonging is doing the same thing or similar work with everyone. And so I don't bore you. We have one more special education law. Inclusion happens everywhere. It can be in special education classrooms and also regular education classrooms. Wherever your exceptional student is, we should think about inclusion. Through this series, we will talk about and think about how we can move from being included to belonging. Celia, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Okay. All right. So now we're back to the interactive part of everyone. So again, those of you that have your cameras on, I want to say again how much I appreciate that. I want to take a second. Has anyone here been on a team where they had intentional conversations about how the child belongs to the school community or belongs to the classroom community, or really was focusing on helping them move along that continuum from being simply included in the space to belonging? So if you can use your hand raise where you really felt like a team took a minute and thought about that, either for your child or for other children. Okay. And so those of you that feel like you really did that, I'm going to step out of the box here a little bit. And I know you didn't know what you were stepping into. So I see Jennifer and I see Julie and I see Abby and I see Ashley and Dina. And and there goes Maureen. And yeah, and there's Jennifer. Let's see, yes, but it was in reaction to a teachable moment from the open house at school. Okay, reaction or proactive. If we're moving in the right direction, I'm gonna acknowledge it and say thank you. So I want to start. I'm going to start with Ashley because you're in the upper right corner of mine. If you would unmute and just share a little bit about the moment that you're thinking of and kind of how it went or what happened or how you see this sense of belonging that the team worked on.
So I work with a young man. He's been able to successfully participate in the marching band, which is music, drums, an interest of his. And we were able to make sure that his schedule worked around that the accommodations and modifications in place in his IEP were transferred into that setting. And then also we were kind of able to um, blend support from funding and different kind of supports inside and outside school to make sure that he can successfully participate in that. All of that with the goal to make sure that he's integrated, that when he walks down the hallway, he's getting high fives from his buddies and people are saying hello and using his first name. That was the goal, is that he felt included, and that because he wanted to do drums, just like every other child at that school, he was given the opportunity to do it, and he did it.
So immediately what I hear there is that Ashley and that team made it measurable. He's able to high five, he's able to name names, he's known in the hallway. We already know what success looks like. None of those things had anything to do with being on the field or playing an instrument. It had to do with what happened because he was on the field, because he was part of that group. And it becomes measurable very quickly. Thank you. That was a great example, Ashley. Perfect. I'm going to say, let's see, hope I'm changing my slides and I didn't mean to. Let's see. How about Julie Beverly? You want to share?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was a teacher at a behavior school, and I had a student that was only coming to school for about an hour a day before he would go into such a behavior that his mom had to come and pick him up.
Mm.
So when I was there, we got him to move from an hour to staying all day. And it was just by including him into the school and him having friends and being able to bring like a stuffed animal in that made him feel more comfortable and more included in the conversation. He got to earn things like school store and stuff like that. And when he saw that he was included in it and asked to play, especially at gym and stuff like that, he started getting friends and coming to school the whole day.
Absolutely. So again, he saw the results of being included and chosen. And I can tell you, I was the kid that was never chosen for the sports team in gym or otherwise. And that sticks with you at my age. I can still remember the exact feeling of not making the cheerleading squad, not making. And we all have to go through that. But when we have those connections that help us, whether we go through and get what we want or we don't succeed at what we want, having the people that are walking alongside make a huge difference. I'm curious, out of the folks that said they're part of a team there, did anyone, and use your hand or write it in the chat, see a space where that conversation helped a child move, or that success or those measurable outcomes moving us in the right direction helped a child transition from a building to another, from a like as Julie had said, from being their LRE changed and they were fully included all day. Does anybody have a story like that that they can continue to share that idea of how it moved us into this space? I see somebody added to the chat. I'm going to look really quick. Abby, go ahead.
Hello. So I'm an educational support coach from a parent center in Illinois. I'm actually talking about my own son. So he is on the autism spectrum and has savant abilities when it comes to anything relatable to history that he finds interesting. So that's the key point there. It has to be interesting for him to want to engage into any type of classroom conversation or activity going on in the classroom. So for him being in a gen ed classroom, we had to have a gen ed teacher that was willing to look outside the box, really separate his position from his interests. What's it important? Is it important for Ethan to understand what we're doing in the classroom, learn the curriculum, and be able to, prove to me that he learned it? Or is more important that I make him take notes for 4 hours a day? What is the best part? So we had a good teacher, and that's what we've been doing, and that's pushed into Ethan is now in different agricultural classes, and he is now has a career focus. He wants to do surveying because this one teacher showed the example of I can, and believe me, instead of taking notes all day, they end up arguing back and forth like on who is the better ruler of Egypt. It's more of a that now the only thing I worry about though is Ethan learning the proper skills then to transfer that his savant abilities into a college curriculum to be in the college classroom. So I think there's a big difference on educational setting, like my students in a gen ed classroom, but are they being included properly? So I think that's where you really have to focus on.
Absolutely. And Abby, I love that because you actually took it back to another phrase we use a lot when we're building an IEP, which is need-based statements. That idea that it's important for him to be able to do this or do this or do this for him to continue in the curriculum. So the team brought it back to need-based statements and really looked at it. And the other thing that I hear in that conversation is you found an ally as a family for someone that shared your vision. We always say that the Charting the Life Course tools really hold up the vision of the student and the vision of the family and bring it into the room so we can talk about and have a shared language within the team of where we're trying to go. That IEP will answer some of those needs and address some of those needs. But if the whole team is seeing where we're trying to go, then we can build the other things. I'll use another Charting the Life Course phrase, in the other parts of the star, those 4 other points of the star, not eligibility, but personal strengths, relationship, community, and technology, to move forward to make sure we're supporting it across the board. So I love that. I want to give Richard an opportunity to share too, and then we'll move on. Where'd Richard go? There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, mine come from more from the adult end. I was a workshop director, and we had an individual who was in a workshop. He invited me to come to his meeting, indicated that he wanted to look at possibly getting a community job. Um, he kind of had me in there just as a buffer with his mom. I think he was afraid of what his mom was going to say. Very cooperative. She said, she never knew. How come he never mentioned anything before. We had a few people get jobs, and so he's seen where that was going. So I think that opened his eyes a little. But as we sat in the meeting, asked him what he wanted to do, and he can come up with anything right away. And someone threw out mowing the lawn, and that's just something that they did at the workshop. So I think that's where it came from. So I go, at your place, do you cut the grass? And he goes, no, I don't like it. And I go, well, can we move on then? So he took a look at wanting to cook. So of course there was an OD referral, but what we did was we said, hey, in the meantime, let's take you out a couple of restaurants and see what it is. And I wanted him by the fryer. I wanted to see if that was something that would scare him. It scares me. And he handled it quite well. Long story short, he ended up getting a job. He was successfully employed for 2.5 years. And after he accomplished what the right time, he ended up leaving the job. But he absolutely loved his experience and still talks with the other folks about that experience. So there was that.
Richard, that's awesome. And that's the other piece that's really important. Number one, whether you're in and working on plans in the adult community or within the that transition age or even younger, that idea that we can speak to experience to know what we want to do next, even if that experience is something that we don't want, right? I've had that experience. I didn't like it, and I'd like to do something else. Or I've had this experience, and now I want to try something else because it's something new. So watching that space for experiences, and when we start to develop the IEP, where we're going to work on the goal, how we're going to work on the goal, even getting into transition plans, those experiences are super telling. I think of going all the way back to Ashley's comment about band. That band experience is going to translate into other places. They're going to let it's going to allow the family to be braver. It's going to allow the student to be braver. There are teachers in the building that are more willing to try now because they've seen success, whether it's with that student or a different student. So this all kind of has a cumulative effort to really create this sense of belonging. So let's go ahead and move on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys on 3:00 on a Tuesday after a holiday. I'm feeling quite indulged. And so I really, really appreciate it. So let's take a minute. So I bring up these two documents to just think about where we are. When the IEP process itself is honored, as it's designed, and you really understand the purpose of each step in the process, I find it easier to advocate for a child's place in the classroom or in the school community. I learned much later than I should have that this document, the way the ETR is written, the way the information from the ETR is to move into parts of the IEP, the way that future planning statement should tell us what we want to assess or look into, and then we bring up those assessments to support what's in that future planning statement, and then it trickles down to where the need-based statements are, and then we go into what the goals and all the objectives are going to be, and then eventually say, if this is all the stuff we want to do, where is the best place to do that, knowing that the regular ed classroom is the goal, and then we slowly move away, but we do it with ideas of honoring fidelity and intent. I mean, it's just there. It is beautifully done. What happens is there's a lot going on everybody's plate, and we start adjusting the order, right? And I've always thought in my naive little brain that if we really actually went that way through the document, the way it was designed, it would change conversations for families. And when I really discovered that, that kind of rollout was there, and at the time I was introduced to Charting LifeCourse, that future planning statement became very powerful for me and really meaningful on how it impacts where we go next and how family voice, and as importantly, likely more importantly, how student voice comes into what we choose to do and bringing their conversation back. I know that as a person who supported families in this space, sometimes even in that future planning statement, I didn't realize that that's what was happening when I was interviewed by my school team, not intentionally so, but in that process of they called to get this information that they need to get started on the document and get started in the process. But I didn't understand that the things that I was saying was part of that. I knew it was part of the IEP, but often the way it's introduced, and that's not everybody's experience. But that future planning statement, as hindsight in all my different roles, has become very important to me as we look at this and as we talk about it. And so as we move forward in this presentation, we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit and really talk about how belonging can be part of our thinking as a team in how we work with families, how families respond to things that are going on, and how we all come together and have a conversation. So Brandy and I put a lot of work into this as we were putting it together, and we kind of developed this way of looking at it. So as we dive deeper into the IEP, how can we do this, right? How can we have this conversation about it being a foundation for belonging? So the first, portion of the IEP is that future planning statement, and it really establishes the student's vision for their future. And it starts out kind of being all family, and it rolls into being more student and family. And then eventually we know as transition teams, we need to move it into really being that loud and proud student voice, but always, as Charting LifeCourse says, never taking that student out of that vision in the context of their family, because families do support students as they move into adulthood, but we have to honor that person-centered piece too. So this statement it's more than just a gesture. It really guides the rest of the IEP to ensure that inclusion and connection and belonging are central. So by grounding the IEP in that statement, and in the student's vision, it really sets us on our way to really looking at and building these places for meaningful connection in their school community. So as we encouraging the parents and the student to work together and trying to create that future planning statement to identify desired growth across time and paint a clear picture of what they want. For example, the child will build social skills this year, engaged in student roles for the next 4 to 5 years, and transition to independent post-graduation activities, blah. But the idea is we're looking across time and we're talking about where they're going to be. It didn't sound much different than when Ashley described what they were doing. And then all you do is say, so what's that impact going to be for next year? Now that we've done that, we want to see him successfully connect and be part of the band. We want to see that grow into friendships that end up being, and we keep going. So really that vision establishes the student and the family vision. It guides the IEP towards greater belonging, and it highlights those strengths and interests. And then we can align it with social and community engagement opportunities within the plan that we put together and the goals that we put together. So then we talked a little further and we said, well, what would they talk about? What questions would they ask themselves? And this was driven by the idea. Ohio used to have an annotated IEP and an annotated ETR document that they used to use years ago. And I loved it because it kind of mapped out questions the team should be asking themselves in different sections. So at the heart of the work is understanding the family and students' vision for the future, but not just this school year, also for beyond graduation. So it's essential for the student's voice to be part of that vision. So as a team, we need to think about how can we work together to create a plan that focuses on and considers connection and ensures that connection is utilized as a key to success in reaching IEP goals. So just the way Ashley said, just the way Richard said, we saw the outcomes and what happened because we identified what we wanted to see happen and how we would know it had that impact and change things for the student. And then lastly, we need to think about the skills, what skills and opportunities and experiences, and all of you touched on that when you talked about your places where you saw it happen, those skills and experiences that we can offer to help the student reach those goals that they have in their vision and feel valued in that community. Because value is what makes us stay. It's what motivates us to work and engage, and it controls our self-determination. So it's all about building this future that they're excited for, and they're supporting themselves along with all of you every step of the way. So we can ask ourselves these types of questions specific to the future planning statement to be able to get this started in that first section that we read in the IEP. So creating these yeah.
Sorry, just real quick. We have a couple of questions in the
Yes,
chat.
please.
Well.
Okay. I see the question, Maureen, about those with limited language. We have some things that we've done in this space. Because the time is limited. What I really want to do, Maureen, is I want you at the end of this to put your email in the chat, and I would love to begin a conversation. I am so passionate about this work that what I'd love to see you do is to continue to work with me. I have some ideas. We often use choices, 1 to 2 choices. We often use.
I get so excited and nervous, and
I'm sorry. That's okay. We often use several people that know them well, and then we look for common ground for the same thing coming up over and over again. And we're like, okay, this is a good place to start. Part of this is going to be a learning process across time, just like in all our other spaces with that individualized piece. So I'm not trying to put that off, but you're absolutely right. We need to keep them at the center. And often when they're non-speaking, especially when we have processes we have to get through. So my first step is we need to start sooner to be having the conversations, thinking of where ultimately we have to have the information at the end. And then, like I said, choosing people that know them in different environments and know them well and that they trust to comment and to answer similar questions from the Charting the Life Course tools or from a tool that we're going to give you at the end of this, and then you look for common ground. They all said this or some version of this. Okay, let's start with that. That feels safe to start with because everybody's kind of feeling that. And then we move forward. And I think that piece really makes a difference in keeping it person-centered. But I am always excited about additional conversations. So, Maureen, I might latch hold of you and see if you can help me inform my work even more by playing around with this a little more. So I appreciate you. And if that didn't help, stick around afterwards and we'll talk some more. And if there's folks here that want to offer ideas, that you guys are as smart as I am, sometimes smarter, clearly almost always. So please add ideas in the chat if you've worked with the tools in that way. So we want to take those opportunities for belonging and understanding the key factors that really contribute to their success now and in the future. So for example, peer relationships are crucial. So they always help the student feel connected and supported, which leads to greater success. And that we saw in a lot of different stories that we heard just a minute ago from folks that are participating. In addition, their contribution to the school community and builds their sense of self-determination and belonging. So, but it's not just in school that's going to come into play, but that's going to come into play as they age into adulthood. So we really need to be working on and thinking about self-determination. And we know that self-determination is key to success for every child in school, not just our kids with disabilities, but because our kids with disabilities have less exposure and less opportunity, it has to be more intentional. And I would even say it has to be a goal and measured. So decision-making and self-determination, when you're scratching your head thinking about what goals should go into even that transition section of the IEP, look at how you're addressing or able to tap into more of those, right? And then finally, tapping into those social and emotional skills along with self-regulation, which always comes into play because they play a big role and in not only moving forward, but that making and keeping connection at school and beyond school. So these skills really help the students feel more confident and engaged in their communities and set them up for success in life. So looking again at those opportunities to build it in through that social emotional, through peer-to-peer, and through the role of the students' contribution in school. And we heard those themes underneath. And I love that you guys are connecting to each other. This is awesome. Thank you. Don't forget, don't leave me out of the conversation. I want to learn. So I want to throw this one out at you. This is a sample trajectory of a student, and they were working on pre-employment skills, preparing for his IEP. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So initially when they talked to him, and I want to point out things, this tool did not say it was a family tool, but I want to point out. So for those of you that were talking about getting voices in the room, This one is a family tool. So it's a parent tool, and we're seeing the pronoun his. So parents, we always encourage them, if it's not a direct quote from the student, and I would say those of you that are educators too, you use the pronouns so that, because we use I if it's the student's ideas and words, and we keep them on 2 separate sheets of paper, 2 separate tools, right? So we want to look at, and this was the family vision of what they wanted to do. They wanted, after conversation, really working on friends and a job, connections at school, working on self-confidence. They really wanted school and the one-to-one para to really understand him better. He's an introvert. He would get quiet. He wouldn't participate. And so assumptions would be made because we have work to do, and we're moving along, and we've got to reach our goals and account for our work, right? And she really wanted this to become more of a goal, that there was a connection, and that he was able to show his abilities and what he wanted, and was able to learn through what he did. But also it's important to know what she didn't want. And there was a lot going on here, and you'll see it in the trajectory in terms of them really hearing what he had to say when he wasn't vocalizing and speaking out and really advocating for himself. So how do we keep an eye on this and keep it person-centered? And so again, we evaluate those things that worked really well in the past, and what didn't work well in the past, and then really what we want to do next, right? And what I loved about this 2 things is, because I do know this family and had worked with them, this job at it says Back to the Dipper. It was an ice cream place that was in his neighborhood, and he would visit it often. So when we had a conversation, is where is he known, right? Belonging, you're known. Where is he known? What has he done? And we were talking about this particular place. So she put it in there as a possibility that he could maybe someday work there. And they went regularly every summer, and he was known. What happened to be that summer when he was there, without her even soliciting, somebody asked him how old he was. And when he said he was 16, they said, when are you going to come work here? Mom didn't have to ask. Because he belonged, because of that connection and being known, they thought of it before Mom even had a chance to start paving that road. So that idea of thinking in that way. But what I loved even more is she saw this, and she was building this idea of trying to put in front of the school team that belonging was important and connection was important. But she went so far as to not only create a pre-employment trajectory, but she did a social trajectory. So in both domains, she saw the importance of connection and how it played into his success. And so she brought both of them to the school team to engage in different conversation. And it's really, what's written in there is very important, but it's also the fact that we're going to stop and have a conversation of his ability to connect socially and the impact that that might have on success at work, right? So then looking up at the idea of raising their voice. I know we had some folks that were familiar, but there wasn't a large group that was super familiar. We kind of hung out with somewhat familiar, and maybe had tried one, and a few that were familiar but hadn't kind of bit the bullet and try. If you haven't tried the LifeCourse tool, and you're interested in this idea of how do we use it as a tool for belonging and a tool for really stepping beyond included and really make those connections that will last into adulthood and help us be more successful and more self-determined, I want you to look at the one-page person-centered description. This is an old one. It looks a little different now, but it's still one of my favorites because it was one that was used by someone whom I know. And when we built this, she really was just talking about who she was. It wasn't in a particular setting, but it was, she was school age, she was transition age, but she just talked about who she was. And this was not, she didn't just blurt this out and I'm taking copious notes. This was a conversation where I had to ask more questions and a little deeper questions and keep the conversation going. And we did it across several sittings, and we built this idea of her one page, right? But when you look at it, the things that she tells us, she's a hard worker. She goes with the flow. She wants to be able to and works hard at following a task to completion. She follows the rules. She's friendly and funny. So those strengths then playing into the idea that It's important to her to know the expectations, to be treated the same as others, to be included in the group, to have choices. Then you see this little thing up here where you go full of surprises. Very beautiful way of saying a lot of different things. And you go back and you say, treated the same as others, options to be included in the group, and choice. And you can know sometimes her biggest surprises were when those things didn't happen, when she wasn't offered choices or a way to contribute, right? It was really important to her. We could assume a lot of things about her behavior and whether or not she could work or whether or not she could be successful as an adult. But if we go back and look at what's important to her and her skills, we can make some other assumptions and maybe try some different things so that we're not saying this is someone, because of those unexpected, full of surprises opportunities, isn't going to be able to be treated like others, isn't going to have the option to be included. So we really want to pay attention to that. And then how to best support me. Be accountable as a friend or a coworker. Opportunities to ask questions. Show me when you can, because you'll learn better by showing. So there's a lot of ways to learn a lot of things from these 3 basic questions that allow you to build something and opportunities for things of those experiences and those opportunities that will really help you belong. So when I'm known as a person, when I'm empowered to tell you who I am, and when I am valued, I am more able to have a sense that I belong. So think about that. When I'm known, when I'm empowered, and when I am valued, I am more able to sense my own belonging and move forward with confidence that I am competent and that I am connected. And confidence, competency, and connection are the 3 things that are needed for self-determination, right there in a little bundle. So I am going to hand it over to Brandy. I'm looking at time, and Brandy's going to take her time and go through a tool that we developed we're hoping people come back and tell us how it worked, that we created ourselves, that will help you start to work on potentially building a future planning statement with a sort of worksheet. And it is very basic and you can take it beyond, but I just wanted to get things started so you could play with it and see what's possible. I am not implying that I want how many people are in the room right now? The 54 IEPs that might come out, as even if only one comes out of each person in this room, should all have the same future planning statement. That is not what I'm implying, but we just gave you a framework to work with, to play with it a little bit. And I'm going to let Brandy take some time to slowly walk through this, and then we'll see if there's questions so that you can take it home and play with it a little bit before you come back next week. So go ahead, Brandy.
All right. Thanks, Celia. So Erica just put it in the chat so you can pull it up as well. We can kind of go through it. It's not too much, not too detailed. It's just 5 different points. But at the end, when you see at the end, it gives you the vision for the future for your child. And so it's just like a brainstorming type of session. So it's going to be really cool. I'm going to use my youngest daughter as an example. And so the first thing is like vision for the future. What's that look like? So for her, so of course it's all in the IEP, right? You have that little box, and when you go to a meeting, they say, hey, what's your plans? What's your future for your child? And for me, I sometimes struggle, like, I don't know, what does she want to do? And then once she became of age, the 14-year-old transition age, she had the opportunity to share when she got to go to the IEP meetings. And so for me, just kind of looking back, hindsight, and having the opportunity to create this worksheet with Celia, it just makes it so much simpler. So let's just go with it, right? Number 1, the student's vision for the future. What does your child want to do for the future? For mine, she wants to be a veterinarian. What does that look like for her? She loves animals, any animals. I mean, if we have a spider in the house, it's so serious. She will not let us kill the spider. We will have to wake her up out of her sleep to get a cup so she could get the spider to take it outside the house. She loves animals that much. So, that's the first thing we're going to put down. My daughter wants to be a veterinarian and work with animals. Some different strengths that she has. She loves helping. See, thanks, Gina. Same thing. Some skills and tools that she has. She's all about helping others, adults, little people, animals, whomever they may be. She's all about helping and giving back, kind of like her mom. She's awesome. Let's go on. Skills, opportunities, and supports needed. For her, definitely got to work on time management. She's still in high school. And so working to build some um, regulation within her day because she is a teen. She's 19. She still has that, I don't sleep at night, but I sleep in the daytime type of thing. So we have to work on getting that balance for her. Also, eventually, and hopefully sooner than later, she'll be actually able to work at a shelter. Now that she's past the age of 18, she can work at Petco and those places. We just have to work on, of course, some transportation. So I have some things to do, and she has some things to do as well. In school, because she's online, she doesn't really have those different opportunities that you may have if she was at a local school and then they have like the career center. They don't have those opportunities within the school that she goes to. Number 3 is connection and belonging. Of course, she wants to have friends that she can trust and hang out with. Once again, it's a little different because she works online. So I work as much as I can to find other opportunities and avenues for her to feel included and belonging. And once again, I said she's 19, right? So you know how much I get to do. What supports or strategies could help her feel valued and accepted by others? Once again, we just talked about that. Just really making sure that I, as her parent, I'm listening to what her needs are and trying to help find those answers and solutions for her. But then also ensuring that her teachers are praising her for the achievements that she's making, even if it's small to them, it's major to her, regardless. And achievement and recognition is key to everything, and especially for my daughter. Number 4, supports are needed to achieve this. As you can see, the example here, the team can provide one-on-one support for social skills, group learning opportunities, and regular check-ins. She has a teacher that works with her. It's like an intervention specialist online, and she checks in with her weekly. She just checked in a little while ago. And my daughter was like, oh, Mom, the lady asked how my break is going. I'm like, break's over. As of last Friday, you ended at 3 o'clock. Now you're back to work. So just making sure that somebody is there to help, remind her and be accountable for those different steps to help her lead towards the goal of completing high school. And then, of course, also becoming the veterinarian that she wants to be. What's important for the team to know about my child and her learning style? This online is not the easiest, but she can do it. And if you keep encouraging her and helping her figure out the needs that she has, she'll be very successful, which she has been thus far. She's very hands-on and she loves visual support as well. She's very tactile, just like I am. And so if I can touch it, feel it, I can do it. I love to bake. And the reason why I love to bake, because it's there. I can touch it. I can feel it. I bake bread. So I'm always in the dough, right? And so for her, the same thing. She loves to do something with her hands. And that's how she's learning and retaining the information. You see how simple that was in like 3 minutes or less. I got a whole future planning statement. If we put that all together, I could say my child's vision for the future is what I just said, that she wants to be a veterinarian and wants to work with exotic animals. To achieve this, we'll need to help her build skills in communication. Also, what else? Whew, getting that timeline done and making sure that her activities and work is done within the time frame that's required for the school. The next one is that the school team will support her by help building strategies, helping with organizational skills, and also other services for transition age, and while also ensuring that she feels included by working in her community, volunteering, giving back, and also finding other relationships and ways and activities to work with her. By focusing on these strategies, also including and belonging, and highlighting her strengths to meet her goals, my child will be prepared for the future in school and after graduation. It's that simple. This is a little homework assignment that we're asking you guys to come back with. Will everybody, all 54 people, be able to have an opportunity to share? No. But if you do, just have an opportunity just to fill it out. If you're working with a child, or if it's your own child or somebody else's child, you can even talk to a neighbor's child. help them figure it out just because. And it doesn't have to be for an exceptional student. It could be for anybody, just like all the tools that we have in charting the life course are it's for everyone. You don't have to have a disability. You can just, just be who you are and still have the tools and have success. Last one is the action plan for the school year. Right here, what will she do? I can work to help her find some leadership opportunities. Once again, getting into some more job readiness programs. And last but not least, helping her to volunteer more within the school, within the community as well. That's my thoughts in my 5 minutes or less. I'm gonna send it back over to Celia because we got 4 minutes.
There
Thanks.
we go. Thanks, Brandy. That was awesome. And so we just wanted to create something that gave you a tangible way. So between having a 1-page and an exploring trajectory done with a student, and then taking the opportunity to spend some time with this document, a future planning statement should be relatively, it should make sense of how you're doing it and how it has that impact and how to integrate the ideas of belonging and connecting to your school community to strengthen your journey. Should be relatively obvious. I want to take a whole hot second to remind us that for the parents in the room, you belong too. Your belonging in this process is important too. And it's built into the process that your school team is doing alongside with you. So your consent, your participation are all built in. And when people feel accepted and valued, they are more likely to connect with others and build those relationships, and you're no different. So the idea of making sure that you're collaborating with your team, that you feel informed, that you've been taken an opportunity to read everything, and you're making sure you understand and asking questions, being able to be at the table every single time and communicating that, those are all super important, right? And progress reports are important. That communication around progress reports is going to be important, but there's several places where you are needed and have to be part of the process, but you've got to be informed and active within the team and supporting the school team to be able to make decisions, to give consent, to talk about that you agree with something. You have to have taken the time to really look at the work the school team has done also, and that's year round. So we encourage you to take advantage of and really support your own belonging in that space too. Lastly, we want to empower you to understand where your empowerment comes from as a team member from within IDEA. And that is in your procedural safeguards and making sure that you're supporting your team member by giving all the things they need from you to meet their compliance things, and that you're easy and part of the team is that in that regard. So you're using those procedural safeguards that are provided in IDEA to make sure that you are a collaborative team player and that you're bringing your voice into the room and what the vision is for the family. So we've got a hot 2 minutes left for questions, and I'm just curious to hear thoughts. This is the first time we've done this presentation, and Brandy and I developed it from scratch, and we would love feedback or questions as we are still developing next week so that we can make sure that what you want and don't want, what's important to you, and how we can best support you moving forward is built into next week's opportunity. So anybody who wants to unmute or put something in the chat, please do so. We'll give it a hot minute. You will get an evaluation at the end, and so please participate in that. You can get support from FRNO for CEUs for that if you need that. So love to hear from you guys, though. That would be really helpful. Looking at the chat. Let's see. Doggy daycare. I love it. My daughter wanted to be at that too. Let's see. These are all from Erica. No questions in the chat. Thank you, Amy. I'd love your feedback, Amy, if you want it. And anybody who uses the tool, if you think it should be tweaked or changed, you guys are in the field. And I'd love to hear from you if you feel like there's things that we could do to enhance it. Let's see. Thank you, Maureen. I appreciate you.
Hey, Celia, I'm just going to hop on. I know I just put in the chat for everyone that just like a lot of information, and we're just throwing some tools on the IEP series, which is wonderful. I just know it can be overwhelming, so I put that in the chat. I also want to share that we do have videos, as mentioned in the chat, that I just put there. We have lovely recordings from Celia Brandy's coming up with some recordings, and then we also got Barb Severis that we have. So we go over some like certain topics like the trajectory, the one-page center description. So if you're wanting to learn more about that stuff, we have amazing videos, and we also have lives coming up this month. So if you want to register for those, you're more than welcome to. They're totally free. We also, if you really want to get into some more in-depth detail about this stuff, we have a showcase coming up in February. That's also in the link I provided. You'll see it's, we just launched the link today, so you can start registering for our Ohio showcase. What that is, it's like an event that we have here in Ohio, and it's an amazing thing you get to see. It's like a 2-day event, and one's like a workshop day. So we go in these details, we like crack open the papers, we start writing the information down. So it is such an amazing thing to see that. If you really want to dive into these details, I highly recommend going to the workshop. And then day 2 is our showcase event.